Yace and Yuchi and Rashayla. And I feel like I could talk about all of these films forever, and you don't want to hear too much from me. I do want to compliment everyone at the same time and just say how much I think each of you has made such a unique film with such a unique composition that I think can only come from you. It's like each one you created a really unique piece of music, poetry, whatever, that like every film surprises me every minute. Like it's like I forget what even comes next. I've seen them multiple times because they're all so particularly attuned to you as artists. So thank you for doing that and being so bold as to put your unique voice out there. But I think I'll hand the microphone down the line and I just want you to say your name, the title of your film, and if you could just like say whatever you want about your film, but at the very least you could talk about how it started and where the project comes from, originates from.
Greetings everyone, salutations. My name is Michael Olowu. My film was Girls and Mirrors, and the development of this film started around 4 years back when I was in high school, and I had a flashback back to my childhood in South Florida, in the South, where a lot of people in my neighborhood recognized that people would pull up to schools or convenience stores or just any places that you can go to, and I used to recognize men and women, how they would style, that's with like necklaces, chains, grills, anything, rims. I was just attracted to all that, and I used to just see it as some source of power. It was like, why is that like really out there? You know, what makes people attracted to that? So when it got to grills, I used to put foil in my mouth and make it seem like I had grills as well. I wanted to know what was it like actually having that power. What was it like obtaining that? So yeah, that's what I wanted to do with Girls and Mirrors, was just really showcase both images of wanting to attain power and what really comes with it. So yeah.
Hi everybody, I'm Rashayla Marie Brown. My film, obviously, you recognize my face from the film. So I started the project a long time ago, about 7 years ago actually, when my mother was starting to be filmed on a reality television show for the WeTV network. And during her contract negotiation, which I actually got on film, the show was canceled, likely because she was being kind of duped under different circumstances of what was the reason for her being recorded. And the disappointment of that, and the fallout and the conversations in the family, including my cousin, who was the title character in the show, really made me think about making a film that would help everyone to feel kind of like a redemption or some sense of ownership over their image. And so these vignettes where we're reappropriating different kind of scenes that you might see on a reality TV show, so like a cooking show or the lip syncing competition or whatever it may be. I just wanted to kind of make nods towards each family member's life story with those types of stereotypical vignettes, but give them a lot more kind of agency in their representation. So that is essentially the film. And I didn't want to do a straight doc, so having all these different kind of performance vignettes is essentially what makes it an experimental film. So thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Yuchi. I'm the filmmaker behind Red Threads, Wolf and Aini. This film is very personal to my experience as a parachute kid. And if you're unfamiliar with the term, parachute kids are unaccompanied minors who are sent to live and study in the US by themselves, mostly US or Western country. And so for me, when I was about 11, turning 12, my parents sent me to go live and study in Texas against my will. But 13 years later, this place is growing to feel more like home. But the reality for me is that it's really hard to stay here long term. And currently, I don't know if I can stay past July. And it's very scary for me. And if I'm diving into the film, there's a lot of reasons for choosing specific symbolisms, poems, using Sims. But emotionally speaking, for me, I felt like if this is my last chance to make a film here with my friends for a while, I wanted to be able to express love and gratitude to my parents, to my friends, to this experience, and to myself as well. And so I think this for me is an attempt to draw a conclusion so that I can start new again.
All right, my name is Yace. My film was Out of the Dark, and it initially was a feature film script. focusing on Elle as a character that is in a relationship with a cishet man and is trying to parse through the complexities of that, and it has to do a lot with shame. But then I found a video of myself when I was about 11 years old. I thought I was going to be a YouTuber, so I had a YouTube channel, and in the video, I was like talking about my experiences being a dark-skinned black girl at the time in that context, and how I wanted to be light. And after watching that video, I was just sitting and thinking about, from age 10 up to now, I'm 22, and the colorism and misogynoir that I faced in my life, and then the queer phobia that I also dealt with when I came out to my parents. And I wanted to kind of take some of the things from the feature-length script and explore them in short form. So yeah, that's how Elle of the Dark came to be, just kind of taking all the violent experiences that I had and trying to depict them in a beautiful way, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Are there any questions in the audience? Yeah, hi.
This is a question for Yuchi. I really love all of your films. It's so great to be here and watch them all. But question for you is, have your mom seen this yet, and what was her reaction?
No, my mom hasn't seen this. She's coming to see it on Wednesday. Screening.
So you gotta stay at the festival, and some more nights at your condo, just to meet Yuchi's mom.
Yeah. I'm really nervous about it. I really resonated with what you had said about your mom and how we had a lot of issues regarding things like that in the past. And my mom's also an artist, so I think it's really a lot to show her, but at the end of the day, I think for me, I'm just trying to tell her that I do love her, so yeah.
I think I was a parent. I don't know. For me, that love was big.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question for Rashayla. A line that really stuck out to me in your film, and I just would hear you speak more on it, is just how can you make films about women you love without hurting them?
Yeah, that's kind of like the big question, I think, for all of my work at this point, because I usually do work with women identified subjects and femmes in general, so I'm very interested in how we kind of use the camera to kind of take back the control of our representation, but how that oftentimes does backfire because of the gaze that is kind of dominant in all viewing experiences, which is a sexualizing or a dehumanizing one. So I think for me, a lot of it, the reason why it took so long to make this particular short is because there were so many workshopping sessions and talking conversations with every single person who was involved in the process and what their thoughts were about how they're being portrayed. So in the interview where I'm talking to my mother as Oprah Tyra Wendy, she refers to the first movie that she was upset about. So that was like our first cut, basically, that she absolutely despised and hated. And that was kind of finished in like 2016. And then I just completely like scrapped, like nobody can find it anywhere really, and kind of reinvented the entire concept with the exact same title. So this project is actually literally a response to her feelings about the original cut, which she thought made her look like kind of like in a derogatory light.
Yeah.
When she was speaking in the very beginning, was that part of her contract, or was that her revisioned contract?
No, that was the contract.
Because it felt very like scary.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to reveal to viewers, because a lot of people who watch reality TV, most people who watch reality TV don't know what a standard contract sounds like, and it will contain language like throughout the universe and perpetuity when it refers to reproduction rights, because what they want is the ability to, like, let's say if Elon Musk wants to put like NFTs on Mars in 20 years or some shit, that they have the right to do that with your likeness. So that's why they'll have to say something like throughout the universe, because they don't know what the new iterations of media are gonna be, and they wanna be able to cover any version of that with your face on it. So, and that's in reality, most reality TV contracts, it's like standard legal language.
And it really ends with amen too, right?
Well, the amen was added. But all the stuff before that was standard contract language.
Sorry, there's the horrible light that I can't see. I was just wondering, like if you could talk a little bit more, because I feel like each of your films, your films either touch upon a real sort of darkness and fear, like borderline horror movie, or whether it's just through the mood or the amount of darkness and smoke or the way the camera moves, or there are these moments of levity and comedy too, like, and I think in Rashayla and with some of your Sim stuff, Yuchi. So I'm curious, and so maybe both of those are sort of just like gestures towards genre or something that might make the audience react in a sort of emotional way. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about where you think that emotion or genre reaction lies, or how you describe it in your film, and like maybe what, does this make any sense? Maybe what you might be wanting to get out of the audience. Does that make sense?
Well, for me, darkness was supposed to be something that was reclaimed in the film. It's not supposed to be a negative thing. I guess genre-wise, I wasn't really thinking about genre that much. I was just doing shit.
Tell me I'm wrong too.
No, you're not wrong. I think I just, I like the late Barbara Hammer was like a big source of inspiration for me, because of her, how she like depicted her lesbian identity in her work through like distorted imagery. And I wanted to do the same thing in depicting being non-binary and the different ways that I've existed. And I think chaos, if that's a genre, if chaos counts as a genre. But also, I've been inspired, the project that I'm working on currently has to do with that, but I'm very inspired by women that are like meant to be cautionary tales. I grew up on Nollywood, I'm West African, Gambian, but Nigerian cinema is a big part of the work I do now, and a lot of the women in those films were like sluts, or that was like their and I was obsessed with them growing up, the person that I am now, I see that with a better politic that those women weren't what they were being depicted as, because they were standing up to oppressive men and forced creations of identity. So I guess sex workers were another source of inspiration. I don't think I answered your question. No, you didn't. But there's no genre, I guess. It's just kind of chaos and trauma, if that's a genre. So.
I feel like I wasn't really thinking specifically about genre. I was just trying to be true to myself. So I think in general in life, I think it's important to be genuine but not take yourself too seriously. And so that's just the vibe I was following.
So because I was critiquing a genre, I was very invested in different types of genre and not sticking to one, and that was the most difficult part of the editing process, because a lot of times we would show it to people and they would want to cut all of the things that were shot in kind of like that softer tone because it didn't fit with the doc kind of element, or they would want to cut some of the more kind of quirky doc elements because they thought that they were misleading into this other story. And wanting to preserve all of that really had to kind of make us think about genre as like a critique, so that anytime we were shifting genres, it would be very clear to the viewer exactly what it was we were doing, because that wasn't apparent at first, and then it just got weird in a way that it would be hard to even submit to festivals under experimental, because it's just like, what the fuck is this? So I think that was something that was really important to me, just to really be invested in genre, but as a critique, and also to kind of like bring the viewer with us, which is why the VO is incredibly leading, so that you can kind of stay on track.
I started this project out really just with, I know it was experimental, but I really just thought about the misconceptions that girls have and like all around the world. And I just started with like embracing an image, like who are we with the grills on? Who's the person with the grills on and off? And just to get both of those sides of those and kind of just dive into like, the unknown, like the unseen, because I feel like people just view people and they judge them on the spot, and you probably shouldn't like view people and just judge them. So I just wanted to get both sides, both worlds. Like I felt like it was very dark because honestly, I actually feared grills when I was younger, but then I actually ended up liking it. We tend to fear the things that, that we probably like, and then we don't even know we like them. And then, so I just wanted to get both sides of those worlds and tap into pretty much like the unknown, because I researched that grills actually have an ancient history. They date back to the Mayans, not just only the Egyptians, like it was worldwide, like even the Africans as well. And even in the 80s and 90s, a lot of people were wearing them due to either, status, class, or wealth. And I just wanted to know, what is that power that makes people attain jewelry or anything that you can put in your mouth? And it's like symbolism for certain people, certain folks. So yeah, it just really started with power, because I feel like when you attain power, there's more that comes with it. And that could be either a good vibe or a bad vibe, but we should always try to get to know folks and not just judge just from physicality, So yeah, that's where Grills and Mirrors started, and that's where, pretty much where it's going. I'm trying to see if I could turn it into a feature as well. So yeah.
You all did a good job of changing my question, because my question sucked. Yeah, one more, or let's do the two more. What, are you timing us? Are you in
No.
charge? Who's in charge? You, and then we'll do you, and then one.
Question for Yace. I love the visual forms of your film, and I feel like it's not the kind of thing that comes out of thin air, and so I'm wondering if there was a progression that you've been on to kind of reach that, and if there are any specific inspirations to kind of get there.
Yeah, I can project. Yeah, so I made my film on 3 devices. First, this phone was the main source. I also made it on my MacBook, and then I rented like a Blackmagic pocket cinema camera for like 2 things. So I started filming it in July of 2021, and it was a bunch of like random, the green vignette, that's what I like to call it, that's supposed to be reminiscent of an exorcism. I just started like shooting it like over the course of a week. And then which one? Sorry, my brain is like so slow right now. The red vignette, again, over the course of 2 weeks. So I've like filmed everything individually, not everything, but each vignette individually over the course of a period of weeks. And then I would begin editing and cutting things, and then I would get very unsatisfied, and then I would go back and I would shoot more on top of that. And then I realized that I wanted to have like a distorted look for the film. And inspiration-wise, again, Barbara Hammer, and I'm gonna cite Nollywood again, because if you've ever seen a Nollywood horror film, it is very cheesy and corny, but when I was a kid, they used to scare the shit out of me. Like, I was totally terrified, but the imagery was very distorted and layered, and so I started like thinking of maybe making it more montage-like, and whenever I would add to the initial shots, I would just make sure that they were in a similar color scheme, so that when it was time to edit, it would make sense. Particularly the last one, I kind of diverted away from that, because it's like so much imagery. They're not all as, a lot of the images are like foils of each other, but yeah, so it was just like shooting things and then shooting again. I think the last thing I shot was in December of 2021. No, that's a lie. It was January, which is the month I finished editing it. And funny, today, last year, is when I finished the film completely. So I just realized that. But yeah, I hope that answers your question, if that makes sense.
Okay, we have one more.
All these films were like so amazing, and I feel like I was trying to figure out exactly why, and I think part of it is like watching you guys play with form reminding me what it felt like to be free. Just because I feel like sometimes when I watch a lot of certain types of cinema, I start believing there's only one way to have a visual language. So yeah, thank you so much for reminding me how it feels to be free. And I feel like all these films touch a lot about different forms of identity. And a big question that I have for myself often is, how do you express yourself without giving yourself all of yourself away? And I was wondering if any of you guys can address that, because there's a lot of like obscuring and like voice distortion and then switching from like real live action into something else. And I know you guys already kind of talked about this, but someone can speak to that.
I'll just start and then I'll hand it, I guess, over. For me, it was really about the writing process of the voiceover, to really think about how to contextualize a lot of images that have really no actual dialogue, because they're just like the family kind of sitting around doing stuff, or kind of taking directions. So that was the way that I felt it was important to kind of resist the kind of voyeuristic consumption of trauma for specifically my mother. And it became even much more real for me recently, because she was in a really bad accident that prevented her from being here. And her surviving that was, again, just reminding me, like, yeah, she's been through this kind of stuff a lot, and it's not really good for her to have a lot of people she doesn't know knowing all the gory details unless she wants to give that, you know? And so her having a voice and having agency and starting the film was really, for me, the most important thing, to have her kind of be able to drive how much she wants to give away, essentially. So.
This question coming from you, I think is very special to answer, because since the moment we met, you've always been playing as me in my films.
I don't know if anyone noticed at the start.
But I think it's a complicated question for me, because I always feel like in everything, in my work and in life, I'm always giving too much of myself away. But there is a moment when I realize I'm actually hiding behind a lot of things, and by having you play me as well on screen. But in this work, also in its original form, is actually a video sculpture. And so I think I wanted to embrace myself and center myself in some way. So if there's anything, I suppose I wanted to give more of myself away in this work.
I love the moment where you appear at the end in that circle, because it's almost, it just feels like you were overseeing the whole movie, and at the end you're just sort of like, yeah, everything's okay. It feels a little like Wizard of Oz, or something, because of it's sort of the book, the ending of it, you know? I like the way that appears.
I guess I didn't want my film to just be like trauma dumpy, like just, you know, because I could just list every horrible thing, like, oh, when I was in 8th grade, people called me colorist slurs, or when I came out as bi to my mom, she tried to get me into conversion therapy, you know. I didn't want to do that, because I think that I want to have respect for my younger self as well, and I didn't want to, I feel like you can exploit yourself if you're not careful, and I think if I wanted to make it in a way that it wasn't something that you could just grasp, you know. I think that's part of like an insecurity I have sometimes with this film, is because I'm like, I don't know if people will understand it, but I also don't think we make films for them to be understood by everyone. So I just wanted it to just be very ambiguous, but still touch on those periods of my life or those specific incidents. And I think each vignette does that. Like Pink has to do with violent relationships with men, and the blood, me and my parents, and the green being seen as a deviant by, you know, pious people in my community. So each they're all symbols of that, without me explicitly saying this is how I was harmed, you know. So yeah.
For this film, it was more about portraying the grills in both, like, from the perception of actually attaining them, and then getting the look as from fear, if that makes sense. So it's pretty much speaking to you, you know, because when I looked at grills, it spoke to me. I would look at the person's eye, and then I would look at their teeth, and I was like, whoa, you know, I'd be like, oh, okay, like, okay, he's probably, like, how did you get those in your mouth, you know? And it just spoke to me. So, but as I got older and now, like, I just see it as a style, but also it is power. I think whatever we attain and whatever we want is power, but I think it's our intention, how we use it. You know, there could be a person out there that's nice, that has grills. There could be someone that, you know, is immature and has grills and they do stupid stuff, you know? So, like, yeah, just get to know people. And I wanted to go from, even filming this was a pain in the butt. I remember when the concept came back to me, I woke up one morning, because I actually worked at a movie theater. I worked at iPic at one point. They made me do everything. I woke up one morning and the concept came back to me, and I was like, oh, I know what I want to do now. I know how I want to portray it. I wanted to pretty much show both sides, so like a mirror that's between both worlds. I feel like it's very ancient, and I feel like it's treasure, whatever we attain, whatever we bring to ourselves. And we should really use that for good and whatever our intention is. So I think just for society, if you're gonna attain anything, please just use it for positivity, like really. So I like grills now. I like everything in style, but there's more that comes to attaining power like this. And I actually have a follow-up. This is a part of a movie tape that I'm working on right now, and that's what all my films are based on. So it never ends there, pretty much.
Well, thank you all so much for sharing your stories and your images with us, and good night. Thank you, everybody. This program runs again on when? Wednesday.
1:30 p.m.
1:30 p.m. Thank you.